Hey guys, it's the Disco Spider, and lately Dreamworks has been really slacking on their animated films. In the past few years now, Dreamworks has been making a ton of highly acclaimed Netflix shows, and 2 of which I recently reviewed. But for their animated films, their last 8 films, only How to Train Your Dragon 2 is the only one that I can say that I truly loved. Most of Dreamworks' newer films are just really bad, and people thought that older Dreamworks was bad. But now we got 2 new Dreamworks films, both based on books, and we won't get another Dreamworks film until 2019. But until then, we have the first of 2 this year, The Boss Baby. But will The Boss Baby turn everything around for Dreamworks, or is this as bad as the business that you'll find in a baby's diaper? The movie is about a 7-year-old who now has to deal with a baby brother who is also a boss, and also has to stop the puppy company that his now parents work for before they take all the love from babies, and is also taking the spotlight from the 7-year-old. This movie is very predictable from top to bottom. Just watching the trailer, I knew exactly where this movie was going. Before coming to the theater, I guessed exactly what would happen in this movie, and seeing it now, I was pretty much right. There wasn't any sort of plot twist or something interesting and creative plot-wise, except for the surprise villain, which I didn't guess because I didn't know this movie needed a villain. The movie follows the formula of 2 people that don't get along and have to work together to get rid of each other, but then end up liking each other at the end. Too well that at times it can get boring because there's just nothing interesting or new going on. The only little thing that could save the plot is that at times it can be fun, with them having fun animation and having jokes about babies having to work, but nothing really that could save the movie. And the humor in this movie is fine. It can sometimes have too many butt jokes, like where they actually show babies' butts, and even one time have to censor the boss baby's dick, but other than that, the movie does have some good laughs. And then we have the animation. At first, I couldn't get into the character designs. They looked really weird in CGI, but after a while, they started to grow on me. The designs are an homage to the 30s and 40s cartoon styles, and maybe even further than those times. And although it would have worked so much better in 2D, it does still give a nice children's book feel, which does make sense since this was adapted from a children's book. But besides the character designs, the animation is still pretty good. The best parts for me was the few times where it had some cinematography. It was only just for a short while when Tim was discovering that the baby could talk, but the framing and colors were just so cool that I wish there was more interesting and unique creative shots like that. Then we have the characters, which, because of the stale plot, the characters all fall under the category of being bland. Every single character follows the same trope to the point where they're just not interesting. The only character that stands out for me was the boss baby, but that's only because Alec Baldwin fits so well in that role. Everyone else aren't really worth mentioning about. They're not bad, but they're just not memorable. And also something that ties in with both the plot and the characters is the execution of the plot and some of the characters and character relationships. Almost everything here is forced. Not only do we have an unoriginal plot, but the things in the plot just feel really forced and needed to happen just because it's that type of plot. Like, the worst part is when Tim and the boss baby get mad at each other and then they go their separate ways. We see this done so many times in other animated films. It's hard to find one that doesn't follow this type of trope. But in this movie, this has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't develop a character or make a character go somewhere to find something to advance the plot, like Zootopia and The Emperor's New Groove. Here, the boss baby leaves for a few minutes, then later comes back, and then they start to like each other again. It was just so pointless and forced and not needed at all. And what was also forced was the character relationship between Boss Baby and Tim. When they both came up with the plan to pretend to like each other, right then and there, I knew exactly what this movie was gonna do. It would have been way better if it felt more natural, especially after their plan worked. It just felt so forced that they were bonding. And then lastly, we have the villain. He felt extremely forced. He was only there just to enhance the theme of losing love. This character wasn't really needed, especially as the villain. This movie could have gone in a more interesting direction with it if he wasn't the villain. I don't want to spoil the villain, but it would have been better if they had him in this movie, but just not in the villain spot. And then lastly, I want to mention the plot itself. How babies are bosses and have to go to work. Now, I know this was the original plot in the book, and in a children's book it works since there doesn't need to be any logic that needs to be explained in a children's book, but in this movie I had a really hard time accepting the plot. I still don't know why babies need to work, and what do they even do? Do they just stay in an office and color? And also, is he really a baby or just a full-grown man in a baby's body? And if so, how did they manage to become all grown up? Did they just drink the magic bottle for 40 years waiting to become older so they can work and do nothing? And why even need a baby company? You don't need to help parents want a baby. Even if they buy a dog, parents usually get them just to see if they can handle a baby. So really buying puppies helps babies. There's a lot in this movie that doesn't make sense to me, but after all, this is a kid's movie based on a children's book, so logic isn't really needed. So overall, sadly, this is another dud Dreamworks film. While I don't think this is as bad as, say, Home or Trolls, it doesn't change the fact that this is a generic kids film that doesn't stand out in the slightest. Nothing in this movie is new, nothing in this film is creative and fresh. They didn't even put a spin on the cliched story. This should have stayed as a children's book because this movie was pretty unnecessary. If you're really curious to see how this movie will turn out, then I'd recommend it, but if you're not all that interested or are contemplating on seeing this film or not, then I'd just say skip it and wait for Dreamworks Captain Underpants. And also, if you guys like this video, please leave a like and tell me in the comments your thoughts on The Boss Baby. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And if you want to see more cartoon-related reviews from me, then please subscribe. But anyways, I'm the Disco Spider, and peace out.